Welcome. I think I might get a Blue Yeti for Christmas this year.
Nice.
I saw a video of Carl Sagan's grave today.
Oh yeah?
It wasn't cremated?
No, I don't think he was. Okay, just talk amongst yourself. I'm going to tweet this out. You can tweet it out too, Reid. You have friends.
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, we could put it in the Discord.
Hi, Mom. Dad. They watch all my videos.
Do you really think they do?
I don't know. I don't, but I wouldn't doubt if they watch a few of them. There, I turned up my mic. Welcome if you're here. I don't have my YouTube open right now, so I don't even know if anybody's watching. So today we're going to talk about abortion, Me Too, Black Lives Matter, communism, capitalism, fascism, and God. How's that for a intro?
Oh boy.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to alienate anyone.
I'm trying to see if I can.
Oh, I don't have you guys' screen captured. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
We are the voices from above. Welcome to the PineCreek YouTube channel, where billions upon billions of YouTube viewers have come forth to see the words of PineCreek Doug, explain nuances of reality, and ponder the existence of the human form as it remains imprinted in the fabric of the cosmos.
That's pretty good. So if you're listening to this right now, and you have friends that are Christians or who have beliefs that are interesting, whatever, invite them to. I put actually the pure link in the description box, but it's locked, so you have to knock, and I have to pre-approve you. But if people want to come on, they can talk to us live.
This will be interesting.
Come ask us questions, or we'll ask you questions. If you're willing to be in the hot seat, we'll take turns on you, one at a time.
All right.
Did you tweet it
I
out?
tweeted it out. I did.
How about your Facebook? Do you have a Facebook page, Reid?
I do.
Does anybody watch it? Look at it?
Not really.
Yeah, same with me. Nobody cares. But I'm not bitter. Okay, who's here? Abdux P. Hi, man. I've been watching you from Blab. Where's the people now? And it's good to see you. Well, there's 3 of us here right now. In fact, you might recognize these people. Let's see. I'll put me there. Introducing. What was that?
Sorry.
I think Reid just coughed up a hairball or something.
Here's Reid Nicewonder. He has a little show called, what's it called? Capturing Christianity? No.
Cordial Curiosity.
Oh, yeah, Cordial Curiosity. That's right. Where your last one was really risque, actually.
Yeah, about gender.
Yeah. And Pete is coming. He has a PhD in microbiology. He works for the evil corporations, big pharma. No, they're great. You work for the one good corporation, right, Pete?
The one good one.
Yeah. Let's see if I do this. And he's also the voice of Carl Sagan.
That's right.
But I have the eyebrows.
You have
That's true.
The Sagan eyebrows.
I'm Mavortius. Mike Winter. I'm trying to remember who you are. Cowboy 1000. I love your name. Greg Morgan. Me. I don't know. God. I have a feeling my computer's laboring right now. 'Cause I usually reboot when I do this, so everything's cleared in memory. But I spent the whole day working on this with spreadsheets and stuff, and now it's. But anyhow, what were we talking about before we went live? Oh yeah, Pete, tell me your theory on hormones, sexuality, and God.
Well, it's a lot into one package, I think. There, I'm reading book recommendation. I'm reading this book called Behave by Robert Sapolsky. Robert Sapolsky is a primatologist, neuroscientist, and a geneticist from Stanford University. So he essentially he goes out into the jungle, studies primate behavior, and then links it back to their genetics to try and understand the genetic basis for behavior. So his book is called Behave. It's sort of the whole neuroscientific landscape of why we do the things we do. And a lot of it is talking about the development of the prefrontal cortex and rational and emotional centers of the brain. And there's a part in there that I'm up to now that's talking about how the prefrontal cortex really doesn't fully develop until individuals are in their like mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
And that because it develops so late in life, I guess that's not late in life, but later in development, that in your 20s and your teens, you have a greater you rely more heavily on your emotional response to stimuli than you do your rational response, which can kind of explain why teenagers and 20-something-year-olds might be so.
Okay, wrap it up, Pete. Wrap it up.
Anyways,
because Jordan's here.
Okay. Well, my hypothesis is I was wondering if after puberty, if hormones and sexual development play any role in heightening the emotional state of 20-something-year-olds or teens, late teens, as it relates to their personal experiences when they are entering into faith beliefs. So I wonder if that had any sort of correlation.
So what Pete's saying is if you're really, really horny, odds are you're going to leave Christianity. Okay, so welcome, Jordan. Jordan, here's the rules. You got 5 minutes. We'll say 5 minutes each, but you probably don't want to talk to me. You have to ask us questions, tough questions. Or you can punt that off and we will ask you questions, hard questions. Do you want to take door 1 or door 2? But this is not a dialogue. This is either you ask us questions or we ask you questions.
It's been a while. I remember Jordan, but hey, Jordan, can Jordan reintroduce himself again? Because I don't fully remember Jordan.
Oh, you don't know Jordan? He's from Pennsylvania. He's Amish.
He also has no sound.
I think his mic is muted.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Let's see. Where should I start here? I'm from Ohio, and
I was close.
I was raised in a Christian family, and I became an atheist in 2013, and joined the street epistemology community a couple years ago, and I've been going back to church.
What?
But
What?
Okay. Okay. That's enough of the intro. So,
okay.
Pete, ask Jordan questions.
Wait, he didn't pick a door.
Oh, did you want us to ask you questions?
I would say I think I didn't really come with questions prepared, and I think I kind of like answering questions anyway. So yeah, I'll
But here's the
let
rule.
you guys do it.
This is a no bloviation zone. So Pete will ask you questions and Reid will ask you questions. And you got 60, you have to have an internal clock, 60 seconds or less to answer each question.
I can just use my phone if you like.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pete.
I can be as concise as possible here.
Okay. Well, I guess we need some sort of starting point. So, as of this moment right now, what is a deeply held belief that you currently hold?
Deeply held. I could probably think of something that's been on my mind a lot lately.
Do you believe anything that's crazy?
That's subjective, right?
That most people would say is crazy.
Well, Jordan said he had something that's been on his mind a lot lately.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I have had on my mind. As far as like something that's deeply held,
Or a belief that has interested you lately.
yeah. Something that I started contemplating again lately was philosophical naturalism. Not just the methodological naturalism, but going further with metaphysics as well. And I've been trying to think of ways to communicate that perspective and how to at least theoretically, how to tell what metaphysics would be. Well, I guess you could say true, or based on the implications of them. And so I don't know if you guys are familiar with the common metaphysics that kind of come into conflict, where it's kind of a difference between Plato and Aristotle, where it's like either the primacy of the mind or the primacy of the material, I guess. And what's the relationship between the concrete and the abstract?
Okay, Reid, ask Jordan a question. That was over 60 seconds. And we have another person waiting, so this might be the last question, and we'll go to the next person.
Yeah, I don't know if that sparks a new question for you.
Yeah, is all knowledge either is all knowledge all empirical in your mind?
No, I don't think I would go that. I don't think I would go that far. No, I think it's kind of like, yeah. I wouldn't say that knowledge has to be all of one category or the other. Like it. I think that, like the rationalism and empiricism are like two ends of a spectrum, and they each have their limits. So, I think knowledge probably consists of a mix of the two.
What's the most obvious thing that's true just rationally?
Well, it sounds like you're asking for like something that's true in every context, and that's something that I think I would struggle to identify, because of the fact that like there are so many paradigms you could possibly work from, that there's almost no statement that's true in every possible context. But I don't know. Maybe there's some really simple ones that apply to all of them. Potentially, I'm not sure though. I'm agnostic about the issue at the moment.
Anything, Doug?
Out of us three in the pier, besides yourself, who do you like the most?
I don't know. I'd have to think. I'd have to think of some criteria to make that judgment, and I don't know what criteria I'd use.
The person who just left, you can come back. They were waiting. But maybe it's a troll. I don't know. But
Oh, you can tell who's waiting. That's cool.
But I didn't even look. I was busy because Adam in the live stream wanted my boxes straight. Oh, I know I was going to ask you a serious question. So why are you going to church as an atheist?
Right. Yeah. I guess first and foremost, I recognized that I needed a community, and I wanted a community that consisted of people that were interested in things like morality and long-term fulfillment, and not just like living in the moment, like hanging out with people at bars or something where it's like nobody's thinking about the future.
I want to commend you for that. Like, I couldn't do it.
Right.
Personally, I could not do it. However, I would say this to all atheists listening. If you have the stomach to go to church and keep your mouth shut and smile and go there for the community aspect, do it. It's worth having relationships with people. And because you can, religion aside, you can do fun things and you can learn new things. And I do agree with you, Jordan, that I'm an old fart. I'm 47 years old, and I don't have any tattoos or piercings, and I don't cuss and swear, and I don't sleep around and stuff. So I really don't fit in with the younger. Am I being cruel here? But I probably would fit in a church atmosphere more so than the kids nowadays. And most atheists in the United States are under my age. So, yeah, kudos to you. Good job. I don't think I could do it, but.
Yeah, and I think it definitely depends on the church as well, because like the particular church that I'm going to while it is the one I was raised in, it also has a group of peers my age that they still accept me despite knowing what my perspective is now. So,
but do you think they just accept you because they want to convert you?
For the most part, no, because most of them don't even make any attempt to do that. And I think some of them kind of enjoy having an alternative perspective to offer, I guess, for me to offer them. That, and I also do some volunteering at the church too, like on the tech team or whatever. So like when they're singing praise music, I'm putting lyrics up on the screen and for them, and so I think they appreciate that too. But
so they're just using you. They're just using you for your brain, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and yeah, I hang out with my friends now outside of church as well, and things are good. We still share all the important things in common.
Do you participate?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Pete.
Do you participate in the Sunday service at the church as well, or do you just go to the events outside of the service?
Yeah, like I still go to Sunday services, and probably more than most of them actually, because of my volunteering. Like that means I go to like all 3 weekend services instead of just the one. And then the young adults group that I'm a part of, which is every Tuesday. And yeah, so I you could say I attend them rather faithfully.
So how how do you gauge your skepticism about the things that are being preached during the service? Like, are you still hyper skeptical about what's being said? Are you just, is it like just going in one ear and out the other? Are you, for the moment, accepting of it and believing in it, and then like as you step out of the church, you go back to your skeptical mind? How does the thought process work there?
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm familiar with how they mean it. There is that one interpretation that I know that they mean to put forward, and then there's other interpretations that I'm familiar with now, alternative interpretations of the messages that they're giving. So it's kind of as I'm doing it, I will ponder other interpretations of what they're saying, and often looking for the most charitable one I can take, especially, and at the same time, sometimes I'll think up follow-up questions that I can offer afterward because I'm on speaking terms with several of the pastors, and
Oh,
so.
I just thought of a
Got a
great
question?
question. I thought of a great question. Okay. So you're an atheist, right?
Yeah.
You're
He didn't say
spending.
that very enthusiastically. He said, yeah.
Well, there's no reason to be enthusiastic about not believing something. But anyhow, so you're spending a lot of time with Christians. My guess is you're going to restaurants. Yes, together.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. You know where this is going.
Possibly.
So you sit down, and the food is delivered. Does everybody look around at you, or do you look around at them and you're waiting for someone to pray? Or do they pray before the meal?
No, it's usually someone else that initiates that, and I don't really. Well, I sometimes hold hands, I suppose, if the rest are doing it, but like, yeah, I don't pitch in that regard.
Do you bow your head and close your eyes?
Usually not.
Isn't it a little awkward? You're
like-
just sitting there
And like,
looking
yeah,
at everyone?
like another example would be like communion. I don't remember the last time I did communion. Like, I don't do that either.
Yeah, well,
So
they would
as
hate
far
you
as-
if you would, because that's sacrilege to as an atheist to partake in communion, right?
Maybe unless of course it's the symbolism that counts, in which case it's not sacrilege even among the atheists either. But yeah, so like I don't personally derive very much from the rituals, I guess you could say.
How good looking would a Christian woman have to be in order for you to marry her?
Interesting question.
But would you marry a Christian?
Yeah, in fact, the one woman I was engaged to was Catholic.
You were engaged before?
And I was engaged before, and I became an atheist in the middle of that relationship.
Oh,
So,
Reid, your turn. Your turn to ask questions, Reid. Go with that.
So I assume that's probably the primary reason it didn't work out.
that was a part of it, yeah. Because like it's kind of like after that point, especially because I was kind of new at it. It was at that point in my atheism where it was like, I was disillusioned and looking at things very cynically, and
In the angry atheist phase.
kind of that, yeah, as it's commonly called, yeah, angry atheist phase, where I felt like I've been lied to, but that created a divide, and it made it so that she was less committed to keeping the relationship going, and but on top of that, I was also personally I had personal flaws that I was not yet aware of at the time. and that contributed to it too.
Is you attending your church again a way for you to meet the next Mrs. Wright?
If it is, it's not very successful, but it's it could indirectly lead to that maybe, but as far as I can tell, it's kind of funny actually, because like there's this thing in the youth group where it's like like an unspoken rule where you don't date people in the youth group. Unless you're coming into the youth group as a couple already. So
Yeah, I can't see myself doing what you're doing, to be honest. Even though I just recommended if you can handle it, do it. But it's like there's this cloud. There's a cloud that descends upon the youth, Christian youth, that just of guilt and shame and you have to act a certain way. Like, do you sense any of that in the youth group you're in, or they're not? Probably don't call themselves youth group, but more college and career age.
yeah, it's a young adult ministry, as they call it, or YAMS.
Are they so careful that they don't say certain things, do certain things because God might frown? Or...
No, you see, and that's the funny thing, because and I think I might have brought this up to you before, Doug, that we actually had a series of talks at the youth group about the various interpretations of God's providence, like Calvinism versus Arminianism versus open theism. And in my youth group, a lot of people resonated with the open theism perspective. So there's not a whole lot of that legalism, not a lot of condemnation, even of themselves, much less other people. So
do you think a lot of the Christians there? Do you think a lot of the Christians there, and I don't know, maybe one or two of them are listening right now, but do you think deep down they actually really don't believe, and they kind of know it's not true, but they're just there because they put on a face? This is their community. In other words, how many of them do you think are actually posers? And you don't have to answer if you feel like they might be watching right now, but
no, that should.
But I want to know their names.
No. I don't get the sense that that anyone would feel compelled to hide it if they didn't believe anymore. Because they seem to be accepting of me, and it hasn't really cost me anything as far as I know. I think I get the impression from my interactions that they at least think that there's an important part of the faith that's still true, even if they are still questioning what the nature of God is in the first place. So it's kind of like probably the one part of the faith that will matter to most people is the moral aspect, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I would probably say the moral argument for God was the last argument that I let go of before recognizing that I was an atheist. So
Adam is in the live chat right now, and he asked a question. Adam, for those of you who don't know, is probably the most debauched and full of chicanery type of guy I know. Just kidding. You're a great guy. He asks, so Pete, this question's for you. You're from the Orthodox Greek Orthodox Church. What percentage, if you were to guess, of the Greek Orthodox people who go to church on a Sunday morning are actually atheists? Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
I would say a very, very low percentage.
I need a number.
You want to get 2%, 2%, and I think that's generous.
Just hang on. That is correct. Very good. Jordan, in the church in the church you go to, what do you think? What percentage of them are atheists? Besides you.
Well, do you want to go with the philosophical definition, or do you mean atheist as in just not theist?
Yeah. They don't believe that there's any God or gods. Actually, they don't believe in any God.
Okay, so they just lack theism. No more than 10%, probably.
Oh, see, you are also correct, because the Greek Orthodox, they're more firm. Like, should be lower than your number. Okay, Reid, this is going to be a little different, but you go to the secular, what do they call it? Like when the
Sunday assembly,
where atheists pretend to be Christians. What? What percentage?
Protestants.
What percentage of the assembly there would you say are actually believers? That deep down they really do believe there's a God.
I don't know. Maybe 5 to 10%.
Oh wow!
No more than 10%.
Did I tell you about when I was attending the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship?
Oh,
I don't know if I mentioned that, but
I tell you, if there's any conservative fundamentalists listening right now, they're going to like what I'm about to say. I actually appreciate the fundamentalists more than the Universalists, because it's like, pick what you believe already. It's like,
I think after I attended it for a while, I did get this sense that it was missing something, that the identity of the group was not strong enough. It is kind of like that question, like what are you standing for? That is a legitimate question, I think. And while like they do make that point that they do stand for something, I got the sense that particular fellowship was like it wasn't something I could invest myself into very much, because I didn't see it having a future, I guess, in a sense, because it was a congregation of mostly older people. It was small, wasn't really growing. And they were all really nice people, of course, but yeah. And there was.
I have a new question. Just in.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but this is like kind of rapid fire. This is for this is for all three of you, and this is from Cowboy 1000. Have I mentioned Cowboy 1000 yet tonight?
I don't think so.
No.
He is my favorite subscriber, and and he is a closeted atheist, and he's looking for help, some advice. He lives in the Bible Belt. His dad works for a famous evangelical minister. And so if he's in Texas, maybe it's Osteen? I don't know. But so, Pete, what advice would you give him as a closeted atheist in a very conservative Christian environment? What should he do? Should he come out? Should he stay closeted? Should he put on a happy face and smile? What advice would you give him?
Well, I think he would first try to find a community of people that he relates with, and start there and see where his comfort zone is in relation to those people, and then see if he's willing to expand that comfort zone even more. I mean, it doesn't have to be like an overnight process, but I would start there. Just find people that you can identify with and relate with.
Find a D&D group.
How about you, Reid?
Who is it? Mike Hines?
No. Mike Hines has no problems. It's Cowboy 1000.
Cowboy 1000.
Yeah.
He lives where?
He didn't say, but it's the Bible Belt, and he's 29 years old. So I don't
I
think.
want to add one more thing. Find people you identify with and do some more of your own research to make sure to test your own beliefs and see where you stand. You may change back. You may think something else. So I would suggest just keep on researching as well. Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
His father is a famous evangelical minister.
No, his father works for a famous evangelical.
Or works for one.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's other secular communities around that you could go to, and if you're not super close with your family, like where you don't see them all the time, but you could keep if you did come out, you could kind of keep it amicable. I don't know. There's so much more context to know about, but I don't know. It depends on a lot of things. I'm leaning towards don't do anything right now.
Jordan, any advice?
Yes.
Mavortius, I should say. Well, any advice for Cowboy 1000?
So his father works for a famous minister.
He's 29. That changes things, like in my mind. But I'm not going to influence you.
Yeah, a couple years older than me.
There is a right answer.
I would wonder if he sat down with that pastor and had a conversation, confidential one, of course, but if you talked about it with that pastor, what kind of conversation he might have out of that.
Okay, here's my take
about that issue.
Here's my take, and Jordan, I'm going to ask you to leave because I want to open up the seat there's a couple Christians listening who love the Lord, love Jesus, and I want to have an open. Jesus is one of them, Jesus. So I want to leave a spot open for Jesus.
Sure.
Or Dean.
Yeah, you too.
But here's my advice
I'll
to you.
keep watching.
Thanks for coming on. Here's my advice for you, Cowboy 1000. Is it 1,000 or 5,000?
1,000.
I say live your life, come out, be honest, be open, look people in the eye, and say, hey, if they ask you at least, say, hey, I don't believe. If you don't feel like going to church, don't go to church. And if people ask you, why are you not going to church, say, I have no need. That's what I say when they ask. I have no need of it. So yeah, I think you will actually, your heart rate will slow down a little bit once you come out. Maybe for the first 30 seconds it'll go up, and you'll be able to breathe and just be who you are. Now, if you're 18 years old, I might have a different answer for you. But since you're 29, I think this is my answer.
Doug, if 29-year-old Doug was living in Mennonite, Manitoba, Canada with his Mennonite family and told his father...
Sorry, Pete, you're not... I can't hear you, Pete. You're breaking up.
Yes, you can. No, I'm not. I'm not at all. I'm coming in.
Oh, look, we have a new guest. I know where you're going with this, Pete. What would I do at 29? I would still, I think, appreciate the advice I just gave myself.
Would you tell your father, I'm not going to church today? I don't believe.
I'm 29. If you can't tell your father you're not going to church today, and he goes, why not? And you say, well, I don't believe. I disagree with most of it. Like if you have a job and you're secure, especially if you have your own family, be your own man, be your own woman, be your own person, and be like. But anyhow, Jeff Durbin himself is here. Can you say something? I want to see if we can hear you. You're muted right now. You might actually have to go to cam/mic on the top and make sure you have the right mic set up.
think he's on his phone.
Hello?
There, I can hear
We
you.
heard,
Hello.
What is your name?
I'm not so sure if am I on?
Yes, you're
we
on.
hear you.
Yes.
Oh, all right, great. Hey, Doug, I'm a big fan. I go by Alligatarz online. I guess you can call me Allie just for now.
Oh, I remember you.
And I'm glad you do. Just want to say, yeah, I'm a big fan of the channel. And I just came in here. Just wanted to I would consider myself just a skeptic or whatever. But lately, I've been looking into a certain Christian apologetic that seems very interesting. It's in the realm of the presuppositional type. You want to go into that?
Oh man.
Yes, I know exactly.
I'll be charitable.
I know exactly what you're
I'll be
talking.
charitable.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've talked to Cy 10 Brugenkade here on this channel. I've talked to probably.
Yeah, I remember that.
I probably talked to 3 others.
The school of presuppositionalism I think I would want to be going into is there's something called Clarkianism. Some guy back in the 20th century named Gordon Clark. He developed this whole methodology, basically taking scripture or the Bible as an axiom and judging everything beyond that. And I guess I'll be taking that position. And my main question for you is that without taking the Bible as 100% true, how can you, as an atheist, know anything?
Oh, great question. I start with my, as Greg Bonson said, I start with my core presuppositions, my properly basic beliefs. And that is my ultimate authority, just as Greg Bonson said. And so I know things, I say I know things based on those presuppositions and building up from there. Now, knowledge to me is not about certainty, it's about probabilities. So when I hold up this, he was happy with my answer and he left.
Okay.
I don't know if it was my connection or his, but I did not hear anything. It was just all roboting.
I could hear him.
Yeah, I heard him perfectly.
Okay, I didn't hear it at all.
But yeah, Alligatarz, if you can come back on, you're welcome to, and I can finish my thought. But yeah, it's, here he comes. Oh, and there he goes.
Oh.
As soon as he comes on, Reid, your chin will be fixed.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah, you can, in one corner, you're perfect. Or, hey, do your, what's that guy's name from?
Mr. Bean?
Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean impersonation.
Rowan Atkinson. No. You can watch the video.
But don't worry, guys. Don't worry, people in the live stream chat. 5 minutes is all the precept's going to get. Oh, here he comes.
Can you repeat his question for me?
Yeah, I can repeat it. Pete, you're going to have to mute yourself because I'm hearing dishes in the background.
Yeah.
But
Hello?
my friend Pete actually didn't hear your question. And so, Pete, the question was, how do I know anything?
As an atheist.
Yeah, and so I define knowledge as beliefs existing in degrees of probability. So I was before you cut off, was going to say that I know this spoon will fall to the ground when I let go based on past experiences, reproducibility, and so forth. I wouldn't say I know other things like whether or not there's going to be a recession 2 years from now in the United States. So it's a range of probabilities, but it's all based on my core presupposition. So just as the Christian presuppositionalists would say, God is the preconditions for intelligibility, knowledge, logic, all that same thing, I would say my core presupposition is the basis for all those things. So we're on equal playing field, except I think mine's more properly basic.
Of course, I guess the Clarkian response would be that, the only axiom that you can take, if you choose any other axiom besides the Bible or the Christian God, you will only fall into, the only thing you have left, you won't have true knowledge, only just mere sort of radical skepticism. I mean, I could also attack that by, saying that your conclusion that it's probable that what was the example you gave? A spoon?
Yeah.
All right. The conclusion that the spoon will fall based off the past is based off things like the reliability of your senses, your memory, and
it's also based on the uniformity of nature.
Uniformity of nature. What gives you a right to assume that without the Christian God holding everything together?
Oh, I'm a responsibility guy, not a rights guy.
Excuse me?
I'm a responsibility guy, not a rights guy. So I think it's the responsible thing to do is to look at the evidence and say, based on past experience, I can run this 1,000 times, this experiment. I can say I know that when I let go of the spoon, it will fall. However, if you're a Christian and believe in miracles, you can't say that because I could let go, pray in the name of Jesus, and it could rise. So the uniformity of nature is out the window if you believe in miracles. I'm sorry to say, Jeff Durbin.
I chose that name because I knew it would give me a more likelihood of me getting on the stream.
Oh yeah, I love Jeff Durbin.
I do too. Anyway, I just say that wouldn't it be fallacious to assume induction in your assuming that because the spoon fell in the past, it'll fall again in the future.
Nope.
Really? You don't assume? You haven't used induction to come to that conclusion?
No, I did, but I don't assume it's fallacious. I disagree with the premise of your assertion.
Well, no. You would be committing the inductive fallacy, right? You're appealing to past events to assume future. To conclude that future events will happen, and you can't. You can't.
Why is that a fallacy?
Assume that without fallacy.
Why is that a fallacy?
Because David Hume does not approve. That's why. You have your you have your.
Okay, let me ask you some questions. Are you a Christian?
No, but for the sake of argument, I'll take that position.
You're not a Christian.
No.
No, I don't want to do this for the sake of argument, although it would be fun. But may I ask why you find this apologetic interesting as a non-Christian?
It's interesting. If you look at the history of Western thought, there have philosophers have come and gone, David Hume, Kant, Hegel, and they all have tried to set up a methodology that will get us to true beliefs. But it seems that almost all of them fall into some sort of skepticism, or there are flaws you can point out to them.
Are you a theist?
Am I a theist?
Yes.
No, I wouldn't consider myself that.
You kind of hesitated there.
I kind of hesitated. Because I'm getting strung up on all the whole the meaning of theism thing.
Do you believe there's a supernatural realm?
Deist.
I think I don't really. I think that's
do you believe there's an immaterial realm? Do you think that consciousness is immaterial?
Consciousness is immaterial? I haven't explored that too much, though. We don't have enough information at the time to rule that out, and that's on.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
I like that answer. I would agree with that. I would be all on board for consciousness being immaterial. I think it's actually testable. Maybe someday we'll be able to figure that out. My last question for you is, how many years or credit hours of philosophy do you have?
Maybe I'm not some student. I'm a layman I consider myself a layman with a laptop. I've read hundreds of articles on this at least.
Okay.
And
so you're just a guy who finds this interesting and
right.
Have you talked to real precept reformed Calvinists? There's one in the live stream right now. A real one.
I have spoken to one, but it was sort of inconsistent. He would go from the presuppositional apologetic, and then we would jump to evidentialism. And I went to defending evolution, but I wasn't so much. We weren't arguing evolution. I was correcting mistakes he had about the theory, and things like that.
Okay. Why aren't you a Christian?
I simply don't know enough. It could be true that we ought to take scripture as an axiom, but at the moment, I just don't know enough.
Why have you read?
Or maybe.
Why have you read articles and articles about presuppositional apologetics and not read the Bible?
Well, I have read some of the Bible, but the reason I'm interested in the presuppositional apologetic is because the idea of what do we really know? And I don't see that debate going on too often these days. But I always see that really in the realm where presuppositional apologetics is being discussed, where the idea of our properly basic beliefs come into question and things like that. And that's really what I'm interested in.
Do you think you could ever come to the belief that a man named Jesus rose from the dead for your sins?
Depends what view we take of Christianity, Arminianism or Calvinism.
Both Arminians and Calvinists believe that.
Sure, but
well, I should say most.
The Arminians believe that we can come to the knowledge of God by ourselves, while the Calvinist believes that no man can come to God except besides the elect.
I see. So you're saying that if Calvinism's true, then someday you'll just realize that you're a Christian.
Yeah. If Calvinism is true, all this thing about intellectual honesty and searching and reading about these really high concept ideas, well, that's all useless, really.
Okay, Jeff Durbin, I hate to say this, but we're boring Reid and we're boring Science Pete. Pete or Reid, do you have any questions for Jeff Durbin?
I mean, I can give like a 30-second response to the problem of induction.
Okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, so basically the point of that is like, either we judge absolutely or we absolutely cannot. That was what Montaigne said. But related to that is like, well, like skepticism refers to the doctrine that we have no reason to believe anything and so should believe nothing. But that's impossible because
it's a contradiction.
Yeah, we can't be beliefless skeptics. Like even that as a belief is a belief. So really what skepticism is really about is kind of fallibilism. Like we have beliefs, but we should take seriously the idea that we could be wrong. And this relates to the idea that we should try to break our beliefs, and anything that is left over is what we can provisionally say is true.
The problem I have is with provisionally. I mean, it doesn't. Provisionally is, I have a problem with taking things as provisionally true. If we don't know it, then we don't know it. Why even take it provisionally?
Provisionally worked good enough. And since we have that problem of induction, we can't know anything absolutely. But we can have models that have certain predictions, and we can try to falsify our models the best we can. And the ones that survive, we still can't say absolutely, but they seem to work so far. That's good enough.
So far. One of the themes I guess you can see in the work of someone like Clark is that basically one of the points he tries to make is that basically all of the objections and knowledge, all the objections we have towards the Bible, they're basically false because they can't be true because of this idea that we can't absolutely confirm. For instance, we find a text. Let's say we find a text that's earlier than something that was written in the Bible, and it goes against with what's already been written down. I guess he would say that because God didn't put that in the text originally, we should probably reject that, because in the future we might find out that they dated it wrong, and it's actually was it's not a good thing to bring up to question the Bible. Does that make any sense?
Not really. I didn't really follow.
Basically, he said you can't bring up any empirical objections towards the Bible, because eventually those objections can be falsified themselves. So we shouldn't,
Yeah. Yep. So you need the presupposition thing.
Blue Streak Science made a great observation. I tend to agree with them. To claim knowledge the way I think a presuppositionalist would is to almost claim omniscience.
Yeah. And are you going to go down the road that it's immoral to be omniscient because only God is omniscient?
Yeah. If there's one thing I can say I know with certainty is that I'm not Matt Yester's God. I love precepts. Oh, they bring me such joy. I actually respect them in a way because I do think presuppositional Calvinism, if you're going to be a Christian, that's the way to go because it's easy. It's so incredibly easy. You just say, I just know it because God told me. The Bible's true. It's just axiomatic, and it's absurd. Any other idea is absurd. God said it. I believe it. Amen. It's Old Testament atrocities. Come on. You're just a weak-kneed, limp Christian.
Can I press you on morality, Doug?
Well, to be fair, yes, you can. But to be fair, Pete's looking a little bored, so maybe.
Well, I just want to. I think I could say this pretty succinctly. I'll just quote the great Richard Feynman here, since the question is, how do we know anything? My simple answer to that would be it's okay not to know everything, and it's important to recognize that we don't know things. And to quote Feynman, I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. So
I know that quote, and it kind of bothers me. The question, I mean, it's a nice quote, but when someone asked me one time, what do you value more, truth or comfort? And I would say comfort does. And there's nothing more uncomfortable than the idea of harboring a false belief. And I guess as long as this endless debating and questioning goes down, it sort of feels it's a little disappointing. Not the idea of you might never know, but you might never get to the bedrock of reality as it seems.
Okay, we got a professional apologist who wants to come on, but I'm going to give you 5 more minutes to talk about morality. What do you want to ask me about morality?
I read an interesting. I just read an interesting resolution to the problem of evil, and that is that whatever, it's basically just saying whatever God says is moral. And I would ask you, Doug, what objection do you have towards those atrocities that from your secular worldview? I guess. No, I totally admit that if I take on the paradigm of, let's say, the Reformed Calvinist Christian, I have no way to say that those atrocities are bad. If God indeed did it, it is good and right by definition. He is the standard of morality. So when Jesus says in Numbers 31 and when Jesus says to Moses, if you're a Trinitarian, when Jesus says to Moses to go in to that land and kill all the men, women, and children, except for those virgins, then Jesus is right. That's the moral thing to do. Keep those virgins alive, but kill everybody else. Jesus said that to Moses. So, boy, there's a lot of Christians who just want to come on now. So based on that standard morality, then everything God says, does, wills, acts, decrees, whatever is good by definition. Who is man to judge what God is good? Are you refuting yourself, Doug?
No, I'm just saying if it's true, I am admitting that if it's true, then it is good by definition. I'm not stupid. I understand that. I just don't think it's true.
All right. So, I guess I'll be heading off now. Thanks for having me on.
It was fun. I really enjoyed this, Jeff Durbin. I hope the real Jeff Durbin sees this, because in the chat earlier, someone was giving you, Matt Yester was giving you flack. I think maybe he was giving me flack, but I said, don't give Jeff Durbin some grace. He's not a real Christian. So.
What? My Christian mother has problems with him. I don't know. I haven't.
I think it's the jean jackets and the ripped jeans. I don't know. I know.
Anyway, would you guys recommend me anything to check out or read? If you just any recommended stuff to look into.
Everybody is wrong about God and Kindly Inquisitors.
All right. All right. Before I head off, Doug, stop being mean to Mike Winger. He's a good guy.
Whoa. Don't leave now. What are you talking about? I am gracious to that guy. What do you mean?
Yeah, one of the one of the problems I have with you is that it's like you always assume that, the reason people are Christians is some sort of deep psychological need to believe. They just have to believe rather than than honest inquiry.
Reid, tell Jeff Durbin.
Huh?
Tell Jeff Durbin. Tell Jeff Durbin what I'm thinking. He said that I'm always assuming that Christians have this psychological need or reason for why they're Christians. Explain Jonathan Haidt to Jeff Durbin in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that comes from me, and I'm a big fan of Jonathan Haidt, his book, The Righteous Mind, which was cited a lot in the book I recommended, Everybody is Wrong About God, which the main premise of that book is that God is really just an idea that serves people's psychological and social needs. That's how it evolved. So that's what we're thinking about when we're thinking about God a lot of the time.
All right.
So yeah,
I
think, let me be very, very clear. There could be a God. Mike Winger could be right. However, I do think that we would be remiss if we don't acknowledge our own personal experiences, our own cultures, what influences us, what causes us to act in certain ways. And I think a lot of the time, we were just talking about this earlier, Pete, a lot of the times what tends to happen is that the culture, the society that you were raised in your mid-teens, late teens, if you've been indoctrinated, you start to question and doubt, and then you do research, or you have some amazing experience, or maybe it's guilt. You kind of had some too much sex in college or something, and you realize, hey, the core propositions of the culture I was raised in happen to be the right one.
Not to mention a malformed prefrontal cortex during the 20s.
Yeah. And let me be fair. The same holds true for atheists. If you're born and raised in an atheist home, I would say the exact same thing. So my point is, how do we lower that effect? How do we lower our biases? How do we try to reach, if my hand is truth, how do we reach that in the most unbiased way? And I think, in my opinion, the scientific method is pretty close at doing that.
Well, it's not.
And it's a group project.
It's not close enough. I mean, there are a lot of problems with science.
I admit that.
And one of the things I like to criticize is that there's this weird phrase that comes up a lot in Clark's writing that says, science cannot furnish us with truth. And it's basically, I mean, you can't... I take Karl Popper's view that science is only a method of refutation and falsification. You can only know what's false, but you can only know if a model is false with science, but you can never know it's true.
Yes, I
once
agree.
You start asserting.
Yep.
Science.
It's an asymptote.
Well, that's what you said, right?
The science.
An asymptote.
Yeah,
the curve never reaches the axis, but it gets really, 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 really close.
The scientific method is the absolute worst way to coming to knowledge, but it's better than everything else, in my opinion.
I hate that saying.
Except for all the other stuff.
Except for the inspired word of God.
I hate that reference.
I know, Pete, you hate that, so, but...
am I taking too much time? So I gotta go.
It's a Churchill quote, but no, hang on. No. The other guy said he couldn't come for 20 minutes, but that was 10 minutes ago. So you got a few more minutes. But
let's keep on the why science is not so great topic, because I think there's a lot it's being misconstrued here in a way. Science does not give you absolute truth, but it does bring you to consensus.
I can tell you what's wrong with science.
No. There's a lot of things, but to discredit science, and that science is not a valid method or a method that we can use to understand and predict the natural world around us is just it doesn't really make sense, because through consensus, through reproducibility, we're able to understand how the natural world works, and we can predict the outcomes based on these laws and principles that we are able to obtain through this reproducibility.
Yes.
Well, most of the people I've seen, they wouldn't argue that science isn't a useful isn't a useful tool. I mean, it definitely is, but some of the, like, for instance, the like, let's take something like common descent. Like, a presuppositionalist would definitely object to that on the grounds that, well, it goes against the 6-day Earth model, and they say that you couldn't, because all science is making models to try to fit the data.
That's not true.
It's mostly true.
Not necessarily. So you go in, you make an observation, you test a hypothesis, you try to disprove your hypothesis, you gather a body of data, and based off of that data, you can generate models that are predictive.
That's what he said.
We use mouse. No, he said you make models first to fit your data.
Yeah, we don't fit the data. The data is the top. We're trying to match. We're trying to make the models fit.
Yeah.
We're not. Yeah.
The data builds the models. Models do not build the data.
Reality is the authority.
Anyway, let Jeff Durbin finish his thought.
Yeah.
I'm kind of lost. I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm just
sorry.
That's okay.
Let me try to get to what
Jeff Durbin does that a lot.
Let me just try to remember what Greg Bonson said in one of his lectures. He just, well, yeah, but he's going from all he's arguing from the fallibility of science. He gives the idea of a pendulum that we have mathematical. You can make a math equation that can perfectly predict the swinging of a pendulum. But if you look in reality, you can look at a ton of pendulums, but none of those pendulums will be exactly towards your mathematical equation. They'll never line up. And he just basically says that since it is model making and it's not reality itself, it'd be foolish to bet your eternal soul on a fallible method like science, and that's his.
Whoa! You're introducing a pal of mine named Pascal.
Yeah.
Does this bother you? Like, is this an issue for you? Like, do you seriously worry that you might burn for eternity or something?
It doesn't bother me too much, but what I do worry about is the idea of being wrong. That's bothers me.
Well, the idea of a soul is just a hypothesis. How has he demonstrated that hypothesis against data? Like, what predictive power does that hypothesis have, that model?
Well, yeah, it goes back to our all our presuppositions, and it's they say they adopted the Bible as an axiom, and the Bible says, well, you're judged by God after you die, so that must be true. And anything else to the contrary is false. Don't rely on your own reasoning. Rely on God.
I want to. Blue Streak Science makes an important statement here about your mathematical analogy to pendulums. We can there are mathematical formulas that say that a bowling ball should fall at the same rate to the earth as a feather. That mass makes no difference as far as the force of gravity that's applied to those objects and the acceleration that they will experience coming towards the earth. But when you do this on Earth, the feather falls later to the ground than the bowling ball. The bowling ball falls first. That's because there are other variables that are present. There's air, things like that. So if you do this in a vacuum, then the mathematical model proves true. You've removed those external variables. So the point being that the mathematics, the models and stuff hold up, but just because you swing 10 pendulums and you get different results doesn't mean that the models aren't true or accurate. It just could mean that there are other nuances of the experiment or variables within the environment that are interfering with the model.
Right. And that was also another criticism that it's in like, to go back to the the common descent analogy. We see homologies within the genes of animals between species, right? And they say that because it's impossible to know all the circumstances that it's impossible to know all the circumstances that. It's impossible to know all the reasons why those homologies would be there. So it's impossible to know whether the common descent model is true. And that's just one criticism I heard from an apologist named. There's a stream, but replying to. Do you guys know who Ozymandias Ramses II is?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You remember he made a video replying to Dustin Seegers about the science affirming the consequent, right? Do you remember that video?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
He made a video replying to a apologist who claimed that science affirmed the consequence, that the method committed that fallacy. Do you remember that video?
I haven't seen that.
No.
Well, the apologist made a response video made a response video back, and he just goes into all these. He basically just goes into all these objections and things like that. I'll probably link. Should I link it in the chat when I head on out
Sure.
of here?
Sure.
Right. And I don't know. I have a lot to think about now, and I don't know where to go anymore.
Well, it's really great to have you on. I had fun, but we have a couple more people who are willing to come on. So I'll bid you a good night.
Sorry.
And just
Right.
press the X, and maybe we'll talk again.
All right. See you later, Doug. See you later, guys.
Take care.
Take care.
Had a good time.
But Pete, you would like this. In the live chat, I asked the question: you're on the moon. Let's say 20 feet up. You have a bowling ball and a feather, and you let go at the same time. Fact is, both will land at the same time. They'll hit the surface of the moon at the same time. And my question is, if force equals mass times acceleration, and the bowling ball has more mass than the feather, there's more force pulling it down. Acceleration is due to gravity on the moon. There's more force pulling that bowling ball down to the surface of the moon. If there's more force, why doesn't the bowling ball hit first? And so that was the question I put in the live stream chat, and I don't think anybody has got the right answer yet, why they hit it at the same time. Do you know the answer,
What's what?
Pete?
Off the top of my head right now, it's not coming to me, but I'm sure I've heard it in the past.
Oh, Rob, are you ready to come on? Yeah, he's here. The answer is because of inertia. It's Newton's second law. Is it second law? For every action, there's an equal and opposite action. So even though the force on the bowling ball is indeed greater than the feather.
Newton's first law? It's the first law.
First law. Even though the force is greater, the resistance to that force, the inertia, is greater for the bowling ball. So it cancels each other out. Okay, come on in, Rob. Remember, this is a no bloviation zone. Reid and Pete will ask you questions. You don't have to show your face tonight if you don't want to, but I know that you're a little more comfortable nowadays with showing your face. Yes, blue streak science, that's right. Your answer is correct. It's because the force required to move the bowling ball is greater, and that's called inertia. The resistance to that movement.
Who is this Rob guy?
Rob is a Sentinel Apologetics. Is his YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
He, I think, is from Australia, or is he from New Zealand, or is he from South Africa? I don't know. He's from one of those weird places where they talk funny. And he's the only one. I think this is true. He's the only guy I've ever kicked off of my live stream show, and that was 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And I apologized to him afterwards. Do you remember that, Rob? Ask more science. Oh, okay, here's a science question. Joe DiPilato. Great. So if I've asked you, Pete, and if I asked you, Reid, and just be quiet if you've heard this question before. But here's the question, and it gets to intuitions. I want you to imagine taking every human being on the planet and putting them head to foot, all the way up, pointing towards the moon. So stack over 7 billion people, between 7 and 8 billion people, on top of each other, pointing towards the moon. Now here's the question. What percentage of the way do you think you'll get to the moon? Or do you think you'll get to the moon and back? What's your intuitions tell you? Would you get 5% of the way, 50% of the way, 100% of the way, 200% of the way? Put your answer in the live stream chat. Do not look Google. Do not look it up. Do not pull out a calculator. I want your intuitions.
What are we saying is the average height of a human being?
You can you can choose your own average height, 5, 10, 6 feet. But if you're trying to run the math in your head, it's not going to work.
I know.
So you stack every human being on top of each other, pointed towards the moon. Do you think you're going to reach the moon? If not, what percentage of the way? Put your answer in the live stream chat. Mike Hines says 75% of the way you'll get.
This is a trick question.
No, it's not a trick
It's
question.
going to be like...
It's a math question, but it...
Is the moon an apogee or perigee?
Average. And just assume you can perfectly stack people on top of each other, of course. The correct answer is...
There and back
Joe
three times?
DiPilato says his intuition says 5%. The correct answer is, and this is a great question because it gets to our intuitions. The correct answer is you could go to the moon and back to the earth 33 times.
Yeah, that's what
33 times. Your intuitions would never arrive at that. But I actually this was the question I gave my son because he finished his math early. And I said, I want you to figure that out. And we assumed the average height was 6 feet, which is a little high. But and then the distance to the moon, I think, is 293,000 miles. But now, question number 2. Now that you know that you can go to the moon and back 33 times, or let's say 30 times.
This is like an interstellar human centipede.
Exactly. Question number 2. Now you're pointing towards the sun. What does your intuition say? How you stack all the human beings on the planet, 7 billion people, how far will you get to the sun, or do you think you'll reach the sun and come back? What does your intuitions tell you? Pete, you go first since you're the scientist and I want to make you look foolish.
You probably go to the sun and back.
Okay, how about you, Reid?
All people stacked together?
On top, same question, on top of each other.
Like 1.5%.
Reid, you're closer. The answer is 8 to 9%. So that tells you your intuitions were pretty good. Even knowing that you could go to the moon and back 33 times, you would only get 8% of the way to the sun. That just shows you how big our solar system is. Our moon is so incredibly close compared to how far away the sun is. So when I hear Christians talk about first cause and the beginnings of our universe and even the size of the universe and how it's been fine-tuned for life, our intuitions are poor. They're terrible. They're not even close. They're not even the ballpark. We have no idea the concept of time and size of that magnitude. And we're trying to say with any degree of certainty what happened before the Big Bang. Forget about it. Okay, that's my rant.
Okay, here's another question though. If you were to take all the other planets in the solar system and stack them one next to the other, how far would that take you?
Take all the planets in our solar system and stack them?
Right next to each other, line them up one next to the other.
Whoa. Well, how far would
How
that
would that
take
compare
you?
to the sun?
Yeah.
Compared to the sun.
Yeah.
So imagine
So
imagine the sun, and you start with many very early men just sat upon no pants.
So
Mercury,
take
Venus,
Mercury,
Earth,
Venus
Mars.
right next to it. Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
I'm going to say your Uranus, Pete, is really big. Jupiter's big too.
I'd say you get a third of the way up.
You think
Just diameter, right?
You think a third? So if you add up all the diameters of all the planets compared to the sun's diameter? Do you know the right answer, Pete?
I do.
No, I'd say an eighth. An eighth. Whatever that is.
I'm going to say, you're saying like 1/8 of 1%?
1/8 of the sun All the planets.
Oh, that's 12.5%. Okay.
All the planets are an eighth of the diameter of the sun. Is that what you're saying, Reid?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's
You want
less
the
than
answer?
That's probably
no, let me guess.
that's probably less than that.
I'm going to say it's less than that.
Okay.
I'm going to say 0.8%.
Okay.
That's probably
You could take all the planets in the solar system, put them right next to each other, and they would fit between the Earth and the Moon.
Whoa.
no.
No. Are you sure about that?
Wow.
I don't.
Wow.
Pete, look in my eyes. I don't believe you. I'm going to say I have to see evidence of that.
Let's look it up.
That's 200. That's 293,000 miles. You're saying you add up all the diameters of all the planets, it's less than 293,000 miles?
Let's take a look. Let's see.
Like, yeah.
Quick, a Christian, get in here. This is getting too weird. Joe DiPilato says it's 0.2%. Joe, do you want to come on? Jesus, do you want to be my co-pilot? Rob, are you here?
Well, what is that in diameter of the sun? What percentage?
Let's see here.
I know the sun's a big ball of gas, but I didn't know it was that
Don't
big.
forget, the only half the gas giants are Jupiter, Saturn take up the most, are the biggest, I believe. I know Jupiter is the biggest. Is Uranus bigger than Saturn? I'm not sure.
I'm trying to get rid of. There we go. Reed's the best looking out of us three, so he can have the biggest face. Rob, I'm waiting for you. Get in here. Okay, Jesus. The question is, if you were to line up all the planets side by side, what percentage of the diameter would that represent of the sun? So imagine the sun like that, and then you just line up all the planets.
Is someone doing the math?
The sun is not a ball of gas, Reed. It's a ball of plasma. I don't know why you said that it was a ball of gas. JD's smiling at me right now. JD, Blue Streak Science, is the smartest trivia guy I've ever known in my life. We played Blab Trivia 3 years ago, and he kicked everybody's butts. I think I got third place or fourth place. Who got second? Someone gave
Billy,
him,
maybe?
Someone gave him a run for his money, but if you want someone who has a great source of useless information, JD's your man.
Here's another sort of scale perspective question. If you were to stack every bacteriophage on Earth, so bacteriophage are microscopic viruses that infect bacteria, one on top of the other, how far do you think you would be able to extend that stack?
Well, I know there's trillions of them, right? Maybe even quadrillions.
One times 10 to the 31.
Oh.
Wow.
Okay, so take 1 times 10 to the 31 times, what's the average size of a microphage? Is it a micron wide?
It's smaller than a micron, probably. We'll say a micron for argument's sake.
Okay, so that'd be 10 to the negative 25 meters,
idea.
right? So you would need 25, one with 25 zeros behind it in a row to get 1 meter. Holy crap!
You can essentially You can go to the moon and back just by stacking all the bacteriophage on Earth.
Okay, here's another question for the Christians in the live stream. I'm going to test your science knowledge. Actually, it's for the atheists too. And if you know the answer, Reid and Pete, don't say it out loud. You're on a pond. The pond is an ice pond. And there's zero friction on it. Absolutely no friction on the pond. But you're right in the middle of this pond. Now here's the question. How do you get off?
Blow?
Okay, now think about it.
Blow.
So your answer is
Well,
blow.
no, that wouldn't work.
What would happen
Would
if
that
you were?
work?
What would happen if you were to blow?
No.
You're in the center of an ice pond. And there's no friction because it's ice.
There's
little
absolutely
friction.
no friction. So you can't just squiggle your way to the shore. It's like whatever you do, you're going to stay exactly where you are because there's no friction. Jesus says blow or cough. Joe
You wait,
Tablato says,
you wait till the ice melts and you swim.
oh, Joe Tablato is closer. In fact, I think Joe DiPilato has the right answer, or a answer. He said fart.
Farting,
But blowing
would
won't
be the
work.
same as blowing.
No, there's a difference
Why?
because watch what happens. If I go like this is a big pond. If I go like I'm sucking in, I'm going to go that way, and then when I blow, I'm going to go the equal distance the opposite way. So blowing would work, but you have to do this. You have to go.
What if you inhale? What if you inhale?
You have to
through
turn your
nose?
head 180 degrees.
What if you inhale through your nose?
Same thing, because actually you're right, because now that your angle, so if you go, then you're going to be pulled down forwards and down. Yeah, you might get somewhere there, but it's the most efficient way
Or just slowly breathe in.
is to fart or just take your shoe off and throw it as hard as you can, and you'll go fly in the opposite direction, and you won't stop because there's no friction. You'll stop when you hit the shore. This was my first year university physics question, like a real test.
Did you fart in the class as the answer?
No, I forget
Maybe
what I
just
said. I remember I didn't get it right. I got partial marks, probably because I said something like read and said blow, but you have to be more specific. And even farting, I think, is not the right answer, because if you're going to fart, you have to fart in the right direction, not just a general direction. Because if you fart while you're sitting down, you're not going to go anywhere because it's not enough force to even put you upwards. You have to kind of like bend over.
You can also just wait for the ice to melt and just swim to shore.
Yeah. Rob, but did you chicken out?
If there's anybody else waiting,
Well, Rob said he wants to come on. And he said that about 20 minutes ago, so. I always fart in the right direction. Joe is
Fart in the general
I know
direction.
Joe is a Christian who prays for me often. He's welcome to come on. I think, right, Joe? Do you pray for me every day? Doggy style fart for sure. But if Rob doesn't come on soon, then we'll wrap it up. Rob is an interesting guy because he's not your typical Christian. He believes in evolution, which most Christians do. So that's not what makes him atypical.
typical.
Yeah, but
It's like Doubting Thomas says that the diameter of all planets combined is 248,554 miles.
oh, then it's close.
So you can fit all the planets between the Earth and the Moon with room to spare.
Barely, because I think someone can fact check me on this. I'll see if I can remember the exact number to the nearest thousand. I think it's 284,000 miles from the Earth to the Moon. Someone can fact check me on that.
And the diameter of all the planets, according to Doubting Thomas, is 248.
And someone said the diameter of the sun is 6 million. So that's 0.04. Or is that 4%? Or 0.04?
Hold on, let me bust out the calculator here.
Okay, come on in, Joe. You can come until Rob gets here if he ever comes.
I think it's 4%.
Diameter of the sun is 864,000 miles. So let's just do some quick math here. Let's see, 2, 4.
I hope there's 78 people watching. I hope everybody knows what causes the seasons. If you don't, please leave my live stream. Joe DiPilato, if you're coming on, that's my first question to you. What causes the seasons? So if you don't know the answer, quickly Google it, and then you're welcome to join.
So it's a little more of a quarter of the diameter of the sun, 29%.
I was close.
I think Joe is
Like,
put his pants right now.
Like I've seen the,
That's
digital
crazy.
models.
That's crazy, though. It really tells you the scale of the planets, right? The distances between them are enormous, but the planets themselves aren't significantly that large.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, get in here. Oh, my wife is calling, so you two talk.
So I saw there's some production design going on outside my apartment on Hollywood Boulevard. I think it's for this new Quentin Tarantino movie about I think it's about the Manson murders or something with
really?
Leonardo DiCaprio. So they may be filming outside right now. I was going to check it out when I go to just get some dinner.
Can you see Leonardo DiCaprio or like recognize anybody famous?
Yeah, people have been seeing them this past month all the time, but I haven't seen it in person yet.
Oh,
they're kind of cool.
I asked the question, what causes the seasons? If you don't know the answer, please leave my live stream. And someone came up with the right answer. The correct answer is God causes the seasons.
God.
Jesus Saurus Rex.
Who did that? Was it The Simpsons?
That was Family Guy.
Oh, Family Guy.
God.
Yeah, you can't explain the seasons. The tides come in, the tides go out. You can't explain
Can't
that.
explain that.
Joe, we're waiting for you. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you about the seasons. The average distance to the moon is 239. Oh, so we have a discrepancy. No, there's no discrepancy. I'm just wrong.
No. At apogee, though, it's a larger distance.
Yeah, but in my mind, I was thinking average, so I'm wrong. I'm not ashamed to admit I'm wrong.
Anybody seen First Man yet?
I haven't. I want to go see that.
Joe, the link's in the description. Press it.
Appearin.com, appear.in/PineCreek.
I'm waiting for you. It's locked, but as soon as you press that, I can see your lovely face. Oh, the app is downloading. Oh, okay.
Doing it on the phone.
Okay, next question. The next science question. You guys have any good science questions? I got some.
What's the hottest planet?
Venus.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was Mercury. Oh, do you mean hot in temperature or hot legs isn't cool to look at?
Hot is temperature.
Doug's backtracking.
ACK, good to see you here. This is just like old days, right?
Did you know that when they put the Hubble Space Telescope into space, they focused Hubble on a section of the night sky that was particularly dark?
Yeah.
Particularly dark, and just let it sort of focus on that area for a period of time. And the light that they received into the telescope revealed that there was an additional billion or so galaxies just within that small, dark section
Like
of the night sky.
Size.
Yeah.
Okay.
Billions of galaxies.
Joe's here. Hi, Joe.
Hey, I'm on my phone. Sorry, it's gonna be a little unstable. What's up, guys?
Yeah, just try to stabilize. Can you try to lean it against something? Hey, look, you're even wearing a NASA shirt.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay,
Very cool.
Okay, question for you, Joe. Out of the gate. Oh, by the way, this is Joe. He's a Christian. He loves me. He loves the PineCreek channel. He prays for me, but not every day. And he wants me to become a Christian just like Pete Enns. Is that right?
Yeah, I love Pete Enns.
You're a Pete Enns type Christian. So, but here's my question to you: to the nearest billionth of a light year, how big is our universe?
You need to fix this camera thing.
The observable universe.
Sorry.
Right?
Yes. Sorry.
Um,
Sorry. Thanks, Reid.
a 10 to the 20 light years.
No, it's not that big. It's I think it's 91, 79.
Billion?
It's in the high 100s. I mean, almost to
All right,
100.
I was putting the unobservable universe. Sorry about that.
I think that's correct. Someone can fact check me on that. But how have you been?
Me?
Yeah.
All right, I've been great. I enjoy watching your videos.
So we're all three atheists.
We just have more science questions. I like this.
I want you to ask Pete anything you want. He's an atheist.
Which one's Pete? Is he?
He's the guy, the yellow shirt. Yellow shirt.
Yeah, I didn't come prepared, but let me see if I maybe have some notes of some stuff.
Oh, he's going into the computer to ask you questions.
Oh man.
Yeah, right. So how long you been an atheist for a while?
I guess so. A couple years, I would say.
Where'd you come from? What's your background?
I was raised in the Greek Orthodox Church.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah, you came to atheism based on your own research of just overwhelming evidence that science contradicts everything that your belief system, Bible, filled with goods.
I wasn't a big believer. I wasn't a big reader of the Bible. In the Greek Orthodox Church, the faith is very connected to the cultural aspect of being Greek as well. So there was that sort of linkage also. But it was when that I began pursuing science, started working in a lab, and started seeing firsthand with my own hands that a lot of the things that I had been told were just incorrect, because I could do the experiments myself and they would provide.
Just hang on
results.
1 second. There's a person I really want to talk to next. So, but Joe, don't worry. I'm going to give you at least 5 minutes, probably close to 10. But whoever's waiting, I forget your first name, but please don't go away. Just stay there, and I'll get to you. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So Doug, you probably remember last time we chatted, and I think I kind of got into a long spiel about the supernatural. Do you remember that? And I think for me, that's probably that's the starting point for just curiosity and just the limits of what we
I'm Lead Scully.
really can know from the scientific method, and just exploring that through humanity. And there's really two main things.
Sorry, Joe, I'm going to have to ask you to ask me a question.
Yeah. So, do you think it's reasonable? Do you think it's reasonable to believe in the existence of the supernatural based on, one, our consciousness, and two, the fact that existence exists at all? And you can define the supernatural however you want.
Yeah, I understand your question. Your question is it reasonable to believe in the supernatural given consciousness? Was there another thing?
And
existence.
And existence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not just for you.
For everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to answer it, but give me a little grace. Okay. My answer is no. However, I do completely understand why people do believe in the immaterial of consciousness and the fact that we're here and that we exist. But the reason why I say no is because the word reasonable has within it reason. And for me, I don't see compelling reasons to believe that it's true. That doesn't mean it's not or it can't be true. But I'm not convinced that it is true. So given that
I guess it's reasonable to well, it's you could say the same thing. It'd be it's unreasonable to believe that there's not a supernatural. You're saying evidence of one thing or the other, right? So it's there's no knowledge. Right? We have no knowledge.
If you've watched, which I'm sure you have, if you watch a lot of my videos, I'm not too hard on the deists. In fact, I give deism an option as an out to a lot of Christians I talk to. And I'll say, and I think it actually helps I target fundamentalist Christians. And so I give that as a note. Don't stop believing in a all-powerful creator God. Keep him for now. But just consider, but I think it's theism where the rubber hits the road and what causes people to act in certain ways. And so that's why I target theism and not general deism.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a question about the quality of evidence. So can I try something here quickly? So your name's Joe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Joe, I own a Ferrari.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 100, how true do you think that is? 100 being true, and 1 being, let's say 0.
Right.
0 to 100. 0 being is not true at all that I own a Ferrari.
So I believe it's possible that you own a Ferrari, but I think it's unlikely.
So if you were to put a number at it?
A number percentage that you own a Ferrari, based on having heard this before, 0.001%.
Okay. Say I came to where you are. We stepped outside of your apartment. I pulled out a keychain, and it has the Ferrari symbol.
So this is evidence has to match the claim argument, right? Yeah. So that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if it's reasonable to accept a possibility of a supernatural.
Oh, that's a different question.
Well, the question, as I heard it initially, was: is consciousness and existence evidence for the existence of a supernatural realm?
No, not that it's evidence. It's more, those were just points of thought.
Yeah, I think it's totally reasonable to accept I totally think it's reasonable to accept the possibilities.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
I'm okay with that.
And those are two points of the lack of our ability to really, at this point, I think probably ever with science, to begin to even start to answer. I don't think these things are answerable via scientific methods.
But then how would you ever determine if it was true or not?
Well, right. You wouldn't be able to determine it through natural methods, right? If you were able to determine it, it would have to be through it. So in order to do this experiment, you have to say, well, if there's a supernatural, well, then either it interacts with the universe or it doesn't. If it does, you have to ask, well, how could it interact with this world? And now all of a sudden you kind of recognize here, there's a lot of crazy people out here who talk about, I'm interacting with the supernatural and I have these feelings. And you have to say, well, is this the supernatural or is this people with whacked up brain chemistry?
I just asked that exact same question to a theist on my last live stream, right? And he freaked out.
Yeah. But I think that's totally, I asked the same question. I think a lot of people do it. It's just emotions going high. But we can't really know, right? We can imagine if there's no supernatural, well, that's off the table. But we don't. We have examples of things where we know cannot be answered through science, through naturalistic methods. Things that it would make sense just through rationalizing and reasoning, that one could come to a conclusion that's it can't be contradicted.
Can I ask you a question, Joe?
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that a God exists and yet did not create the universe?
If a God exists that did not create the universe,
is it possible that a God exists but is not a creator God?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So if,
Where did the universe?
yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is, this is what I'm feeling from you, Joe. I need an answer of where we came from. I don't have an answer, so I think it's going to be God.
I'm a scientist. You're a scientist, right? You think about things. That's what we're doing. We're talking about it. We're thinking. I'm not saying I need an answer. I'm just saying.
Do you have any reason to think?
Then you say, "Hey, is this reasonable?"
Do you have any reason to think that a God created the universe?
I do.
Besides that you can't think of anything else.
I'm sorry?
Besides that you can't think of any other reason.
Yes. So there's two reasons really for me. It comes from one, just reasoning, just from top-down reasoning, as far as taking those two examples, existence and consciousness.
Rob, don't go away. Sorry to interrupt. Rob, don't go away. Just put you on hold. We're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes, and then you can come in.
Yeah. And the other one is the one that you hear, and it's both. None of these are verifiable, right? And the other one is personal experience, which I would say is the interaction with the supernatural. And I cannot demonstrate this to you, and I can't show it to you, but that's what it is.
See, I'm
and you can't believe it, and you
okay.
And I get that's okay.
Well, something that I always have an issue with when I hear these arguments is that I hear a lot that personal experience is sort of the gateway to this supernatural world, and that's how we know that one would come to the conclusion that a supernatural world exists. If that's the case, then that supernatural world would have to interact with the material world. Yeah. So if that's the case, and we have tools in the material world to observe the material world, we should then, by definition, be able to observe that supernatural world.
No, not necessarily. You're familiar with Flatlander story?
No.
Are any of you guys familiar with Flatlander?
We don't have time for stories, but what I heard you say earlier.
No, he's asking
our ability to
heard of something
with those, right? We can't interact in a way. If we're in a 2D plane, we can't interact with the full 3D, right? If we're in a 3D plane, we can't interact with the 4D plane. If we're in a 4D plane, we can't directly interact with the entirety of a 5D plane. So it's similar in that concept. It doesn't, just because there's interaction, it doesn't mean that there's two ways of interaction that we have our ability to study and measure. So
but Joe, I asked you earlier, what reasons do you think that a God created the universe? And you said that you use your reasoning, and then you mentioned something about personal experience.
Yeah, so top down and bottom up.
Okay, but if we're truth seekers and we're not starting from the premise that a God exists or doesn't, we're just trying to figure out, a God would have to exist for you to attribute that experience to a God in the first place. So I can't see that bottom up working.
Right. You can experience God without caring if he created the universe.
But you're still going to question, is this really God, or is this just my internal emotions? Is this just my own thoughts?
Right. Yeah.
So the question is, if you're saying I believe in God because of the universe, my question is, what reason do you have to think that a God created the universe?
I'm trying to distinguish this from,
because I don't think you can go to personal experience.
I guess I'm not really. I guess that's the question again.
What reason?
How do I know?
What reason do you think? What reason do you have to believe that a God created the universe? Given that we're coming from the point of view of truth seekers, we're not saying, "Oh, I had an experience and that was God. I know it was God." We're trying to figure out if there is a God to begin with, by looking at the universe. What do you see in the universe? What do you know about the universe that leads you to have reasons that God did it?
Yeah. So as people, we're just feeling, we're sensing, feeling, thinking beings, right? And however we do this, if it's purely naturalistic or through supernatural or spiritual, right? If there is such a thing, whatever truth is going to be based on our experiences and how we experience the world. So it's really, it's not something that can be known. It's just it comes probably down more to trusting and confirmation. And
Okay, but my question,
it's a combination. I guess it's not easy for me to come up with something
reason
that would it's not something that
I think if you were to put it in two words, you would say personal experience in the end.
Yeah,
seems like it all boils down to personal experience.
Reid, do you want to say something?
It has to be experienced.
Yeah.
The only way to experience it is through legitimate faith, trust, and humility. If such a God exists, where those are important, and if such a supernatural realm exists of a God who actually has within desires for what is good, what we experience as good, and for humility and trusting that.
Can I stop you there, Joe? Like,
Go ahead.
I'm not, please don't think I'm beating up on you at all. But the question was, what reasons do you have to think a God created the universe? And these are some of the answers.
Ultimately comes down to experience. Yeah, go ahead.
These are some of the answers I do get from other theists. It is, well, infinite past is impossible. That's one answer I've heard. So therefore, if the universe couldn't have always existed, and they'll also say that something can't come from nothing, so that's impossible. So given that the universe is not eternal and that something can't come from nothing, the next best explanation is God. That's what I typically hear.
Or something that would fit the category God.
Right.
And I'm just using the word supernatural, right? It's something beyond what's within the natural confines that the universe, basically something that breaks the logic.
Another big issue I have with personal experience is that when people say personal experience, they don't seem to take into account the fallibility of the human mind, and that our brains are taking these scant data points of all the stimuli that are coming to us, and it's mixing those data points with stored memory and previous past experiences, and trying to put together an image of what it thinks is reality and is not necessarily what is reality. So then, if we know that there's this fallibility that's attached to the human mind, how can we have any sort of confidence that the experiences that we're calling personal experiences are actually what they are?
Right. We can't. It really, it really comes down to
comes down to faith.
If we take by assumption naturalism or supernaturalism, it comes to a base assumption, right? If there is no supernatural, it's easy. If there is a supernatural, then you begin to ask, well, in which ways could those interact in ways that really we would are beyond scientific study? So we either accept, hey, maybe there's a natural, and I know that this is just brain chemistry, or if I say, hey, maybe there is something that's, why is there existence? Why is there not nothing? I'm not talking about empty space.
Right, and Joe, we got to wrap it up here because Rob's waiting patiently. Yeah. But I just want to say this: like, I totally understand why some people believe in a creator God because of this reason. I get it. I totally get it. But from my perspective, I think it's more intellectually honest to say I don't know and not pretend to know something we don't know. Now, could a God have created the universe? Sure. Do I think it's the Christian God? I will take the burden that no, but maybe, who knows? But
and I would agree in some senses that you have a whole bunch of different Christian gods.
Yeah.
They're not all the same.
Yeah, I agree. I've talked to a lot of different Christians.
I
understand.
I think most of the Christian gods are
So I want to encourage you, Joe.
from here.
I want to encourage you that it's okay to sort of have that in your mind. Yeah, that possibility, that openness, that maybe a creator God created everything, but also be okay with the idea that maybe he didn't, maybe it didn't, maybe this is us. The material is all there is. I'm open to both.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. And I don't have any existential angst.
Yeah.
I'm willing to change my mind if let's say, we talked about the tests for the immaterial and so forth last time we talked. But anyhow, thanks for coming on. Rob's been waiting patiently, and he's the guy I kicked off 2 years ago. Take care. Have a great day or night wherever you are.
Yep.
See you, Joe.
Thanks. See you.
Yeah.
I think he's in the U.S., so it'd be night. Okay, Rob, here you come.
Better to have questions that don't have answers than answers that can't be questioned.
Rob has a good head of hair. He gives Reid a good run for his money. Can you hear us, Rob? You're on. Say something, Rob.
Hello?
You're muted.
We can't hear a word you're saying, or I don't even see your lips move. Is this a ventriloquist show?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Volume is a little low, though.
A little low.
Finally, Doug. Finally, we get to talk face to face as well.
Yeah, it's been a while.
How you been?
I'd say about an 8.5.
That's good.
Where are you right now?
Yeah, the traffic's actually about 2. I'm in Perth, Australia.
Oh yeah, okay. That was my first
Yeah,
guess. Australia. So do you know Pete?
Nope.
Hello.
Hi, Pete.
How are you?
I have an uncle Pete, and my father's also Pete, so
Cool.
I'm familiar with him.
What? You
Lots
have
of
an
Pete.
Uncle Pete but your dad and your uncle are not brothers. It's on your mom's side, right? It better be.
Yeah. So
Otherwise,
my uncle Pete is my mom's father. Yeah.
otherwise your grandparents are like, yeah, this is my son Pete and my other son Pete.
That would be awesome.
So,
Pete's quite a popular name in Australia.
so Pete,
Is there a way to turn the volume up on your mic at all?
Let's see.
I can always just turn my volume up, but then I would have to hear Doug more. Sorry.
Can you hear me now? Is it better now?
Oh, there you go. That's good.
So do you want to ask us questions,
Yeah,
or do
Doug,
you want to ask
appreciate
us
all
questions?
the stuff that you. Well, I was just going to say, I appreciate all the things you've been doing on your channel, bringing on Dennis McDonald and all those things that your average churchgoer has absolutely no idea about.
Well, you're welcome.
I actually recently on my Facebook, a friend of mine, he's a Reformed Christian. I attend an Asian group, an Asian church over here, local, and on his Facebook he posts things that are quite, park the bin at the door sort of thing. And I challenged him. I was saying, look, if I walked into your church and I presented McDonald's works, I'd make everyone skeptical. So it's good that you're challenging Christians. I really appreciate it.
Well, I think a lot of Christians like my channel because they like it when I go against the Joel Osteens of the world. And they like it when I go after even the very fundamentalists. Like a lot of liberal Christians love it when I kind of beat up on the very conservative Christians and the ones who believe that don't believe in evolution and stuff. So I pick on enough different types of Christians that everybody likes me at least once.
Right.
But maybe never again. I don't know.
Yeah. And the last time you and I spoke, I think while I was driving, I briefly heard you mention that you kicked me out, but no hard feelings, because at the time I think you were new to the whole YouTube thing, and you were hearing quite a lot of outlandish claims by Christians, and so I think I was saying some pretty outlandish things that made you go, what the heck? So
Yeah, I think both of us have changed over the last 2 years. So the game tonight is you can either ask Reid and Pete and myself questions, or we can ask you questions. What would you prefer?
I honestly I don't even have any questions to ask. This is just an impromptu.
Okay. Fair enough.
Put the link out. I was like,
So
I'll just
can
come in
I
and say hi.
ask a question to start then?
Yeah,
Since
sure.
I don't know Rob at all. So Rob, what is a deeply held belief that you have, and how confident are you that that belief is true?
A deeply held belief. I believe I exist. That's number one. I believe I'm sitting on a chair right now, and that there's a swirling amount of fluid dynamics happening because of the fan behind me. And if you're aiming that at a religious context, then yeah, I do believe in God. But my reasons are more model based. I was hearing a little bit discussion earlier about how you align your models with the data. You don't fit the data with the model. And yeah, and I guess the certainty of my belief is not 100%. It's just probabilistic. What's the highest probability? Something which Doug harps on as well.
And what brings you to the belief or the conclusion that the existence of a God is more probable than not?
The holistic scope of religions around the world, especially from the ancient Near East leading up until the 1st century, and then again the last 2,000 years of a holistic shared knowledge of humanity as a whole. Coming from India, leaving India at the age of 9, there are a lot of things that I noticed that were quite eye-opening. And but specifically, if I'm going to hone it down to a particular belief in one particular deity, that would be obviously the biblical data that relates to this, to these other data points. But that doesn't mean that I neglect belief per se in, say, Allah or the other gods of the world. That there's a high probability that they also exist alongside Yahweh.
So if
Wow.
I understood you correctly,
Doxers.
the reason you come to the conclusion that it's more probable than not is because you've observed others around the world believing in a God, but you hold the Bible, which you consider a data point, as a stronger piece of evidence to suggest this is more probable than not.
No, I hold the biblical data on equal sitting because I don't want to label it as a religious text. So the Old Testament I see as just as it is, an ancient Near Eastern document, just as the other ancient Near Eastern documents. And the interesting thing about the Old Testament is that it is laid out in a historiographical, like a chronology, whereas the other texts seem they read like the Book of Proverbs basically. They don't have a flow to them. It's very fantastical, but that doesn't neglect the fact that there's historical things mentioned relative to the tribes and the cultures that those texts are written within. Then you extrapolate that with the so-called gods that interact with these particular people. They're given certain names. And then my interest in that is the fact that, the claims of these texts is that there's a supernatural experience going on, but very rarely. It's not all the time. And that's the same thing I see in, say, the Exodus accounts with Yahweh. Now, that's one side of the argument. That's going from a pure text context, and if you're looking at it from a
Rob,
non-scientific context.
I'm going crazy here. I have to pee really bad, but but did I hear you right? You're saying that Allah, Vishnu, Yahweh, they all could exist at the same time? Can you clarify what
Yeah.
you said earlier?
Poseidon,
Odin?
Well,
Zeus,
possibly Yoda as well. Yeah, Zeus, the Greek gods. Yeah.
Ra.
The point actually that probably to me, I mean, you guys know about John 3:16. Christians use John 3:16 as the most, famous verse and all that. But an equivalent of John 3:16 in the Old Testament as a summary of what I'm getting at is Deuteronomy 32 verse 8, where it's called the Song of Moses, and Moses basically summarizes that you have Yahweh according to the number of the gods, plural. So in the ancient Near East, they believe in 60 sons of El distributed across the table of nations in the Mesopotamian region.
Okay, I got it. So, but do you put one God above another?
Yeah, I have Yahweh as the top dog. I don't have the other gods equal with him.
Okay, now I'm going to ask a question that Reid's thinking right now. And Reid is thinking in his head, on a scale of 0 to 100, how confident are you that Yahweh exists and is the top God and all these other gods may exist? Like, what confidence level do you give this? Because you entered this live stream talking about probabilities and models and so forth. What probability do you give this model?
I can't put a number on it. I would say, but if I was to put a number on it, I can't put 100%. It comes down to, so if I'm only relying on the Old Testament, then I would say close to 90%. But as it leads into the New Testament era, especially with Jesus and the incarnation, I would definitely put it in the high 90s, like 95 plus %.
Okay, great. Now Reid has another question, but before he asks his, Iron Chariotor in the live chat had a great question, and this also has to do with probabilities, because you believe evolution via common descent, correct? You accept it as true. What is more probable to you, that these gods exist outside of us, or that evolution, we have evolved to create these gods in our image as a way to survive?
Well, it depends on. So there's a couple of things you have to think about. So you're talking about, Reid, for example. Not Reid, Pete. The initial human population in 150,000 years ago would be 10,000 individuals. With a rough estimate age of 20, 30 years old, that migrate from Middle East, Africa to the Arabian Peninsula, and then they spread out just before the Holocene, say 15,000 years ago. So you're talking about low population levels and human species that arise from single-cell organisms, which, by the way, biologists give a estimate, that the probabilistic estimate of 10 to the minus 1 million probability that we arose from that. So, and then those human individuals that then generate an oral tradition that then leads into the literature that we read about. I don't think evolution. So from a naturalistic context that humans were making up these things, I don't think from a psychological context that is the case.
So if I understand, did you say that the probability that we arose from simple single-celled organisms is extraordinarily small?
Yeah, Francisco Ayala, I think his name is, mentioned that.
I'm going to pee. I'll be right back.
10 to the minus 1 million. And then three astronomers took that figure and extrapolated it out with dark energy and said it's 10 to the minus 27 million probability that someone like you and me can come out from a naturalistic. Which, by the way, they're not Christian. By the way, they're just people writing in the literature.
So then, how would one explain how humans came to be? What was the starting point?
Well, the point is just that why put a probability with respect to evolution as the means of how this came about, this religious belief system, this religious intuition that humans have, when in itself humans are exceedingly improbable to have arisen. So out of everything on the table, you have to explain why we arose to begin with from an evolutionary context, which I accept. I accept the evolution paradigm.
Well, that doesn't explain why. It explains how.
Evolution explains the mechanisms, yeah, but the probability, when you put the mechanisms together and extrapolate it, it seems too lucky. Everything had to be at the right time, at the right spot, and so on.
So I kind of want to just sum this up in sort of a simple, sort of concise way. Are you saying that evolution did occur, but evolution on its own is not very probable, and that there must have been some sort of supernatural force to sort of guide it to increase the probability of it occurring?
And then again, that comes down to how you interpret Genesis and how God interacts. So I'm agnostic on that, in the sense that there are scientists like Hugh Ross that will not accept evolution, but he will say something like the extinction events that took place and everything we read about through history up until the Cambrian, and then from the Cambrian onwards.
Can I make just like a blanket assumption here? Just based off of what I've heard briefly here, I'm going to draw the preliminary conclusion, which can change, that I'm not sure you know really what you believe, and that you're still trying to sort things out, and that your mind is set on that things have occurred, or you observe nature, and that how nature is arranged just in your mind seems not very probable to have occurred spontaneously or randomly, and that some driving force had to be behind that. And that's kind of where the starting point of where you're coming from begins. But you're not really sure where you're at yet, because to me it kind of sounds a little all over the place.
No. I'm quite confident in what I've been reading and how I'm formulating my arguments. Basically, I'm not going to dogmatically assert things. Doug knows this, like he's seen what I put on my Facebook and so on. I'm very assertive when it comes down to, yes, this is what the scholarship says and this is what the data says, but when it comes down to this, go ahead, So that, for example, the ministry's biologos and reasons to believe, they're competing on this very question you've asked. So biologos is a pro-evolution ministry, and biologists like Dennis Van Lima will argue that God is the...
Do you have a question, Reid?
No, I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Weird was waving goodbye.
No. If we...
Can I just finish that point, though?
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So he'll argue that God is the prime mover right at the Big Bang onwards, and basically from the four fundamental laws of nature, you just let it play. But Hugh Ross will say, no, Genesis says God is always involved with the creation process. And so at key moments in evolutionary history, you have God coming in and tweaking them. And so I'm sitting on the side, in between them, going, there's points that Dennis is making that's very good, but there's points that Hugh Ross is making that's very good. The problems with Hugh Ross's position is that it's God of the gaps, and Dennis is trying to avoid the God of the gaps. And so God of the gaps leads to a non-empirical, you can't really do science with it, especially the origin of life issue as well.
Go ahead, Reid.
Okay, yeah. So you're currently above 95% confident that Yahweh exists or is the top God. And part of your reasons for believing this have to do with the improbability of evolution occurring without it being true? Is that accurate?
Then again, the whole 95 figure is made up. It's just...
You're just very confident.
Yeah.
So if you found yourself coming to find some explanation, a natural explanation for how life could come to be and evolve, would that affect your confidence in this at all?
Oh yeah, definitely.
How much?
Well, for example, if we find, okay, let me use this as a like a context. The discussion on extraterrestrial life, especially sentient life, which actually is a very old discussion. So the early church called it the principle of plenitude. Is God such a magnificent creator that it's not just Earth, it's everything as well? And there were theologians that were able to connect that with the crucifixion quite comfortably. I'm open to that idea. But again, someone like Hugh Ross will say, there's no means for extraterrestrial life to exist because of the way the universe actually is. And if that's the case, and this is his argument, if that's the case, and if we are alone, that should also communicate some form of anxiety, like why we're alone and that's it. And then, the why questions start to pop up.
So is the discovery of an alien a kind of falsification mechanism for this belief?
Discovery of an alien
or no?
Will reduce the uniqueness of you and me as sentient. But that's why I wanted to preface it with the fact that the early church found a way 2,000 years ago to be comfortable with the idea. But for me, an alien race will make me go, maybe we're not special. Even if the theological argument can still work around that, for me it's less fantastic. It's less, the wow factor reduces. If we are alone, then the wow factor goes up.
What if the early church has this philosophy that God creates everything, and that would include an extraterrestrial life? But what if we find out that extraterrestrial life is more intelligent than us and tells us that your church is wrong? God does not exist.
Well,
what happens then?
In what way are they more intelligent? Because aren't our brains the biggest brain you can have?
They have brains that are 10 times the size of ours.
But wouldn't those brains cook themselves? It'll just produce a lot of heat.
They've evolved efficient air conditioners to
liquid cooled
their brains. Yeah. They have antifreeze going through their brains.
Yeah, and I'll entertain the thought, even though models of that have been proposed and they've been shown that the Homo sapien brain is the biggest you can get actually anatomically. But
let's say for hypothetical purposes that this is able to occur. We find this super intelligent extraterrestrial that says your church is wrong.
I would love to have a conversation with that alien and for him or her or it to, kind of like Interstellar when Cooper goes into the Tesseract and is conversing with this 5-dimensional beings. And yeah,
I want to focus us in, because there's some people who've actually just popped into the live stream. In one sentence, Rob, tell us why you're 95% confident that Yahweh is the top dog.
Top lobster.
In one sentence.
The universe, which includes you, me, the Bible, history.
But how does that relate to Yahweh? Why can that be Allah or Vishnu, or why Yahweh?
Because Yahweh, as depicted in this particular scripture leading into the person of Jesus, has the most coherent engagement with humanity than I see Allah or any of the other gods.
Could
he's the most efficient.
Oh, Oh, that's interesting. Do you think the universe is efficient?
No, his engagement with the universe. So, for example, Doug, you were talking about miracles and the pen that was dropping earlier. And immediately what popped into my mind was that I find it interesting that Yahweh is the only one that says, like he actually makes it a pretty demanding promise to Israel, that if the laws of nature were to change, like specifically it actually says this in Jeremiah, if the laws were to change, my covenant with Israel will then just collapse and implode.
How did you figure
So
out that
means,
Yahweh actually said that?
So I'm not making that argument though. So Jeremiah's, this author Jeremiah is making the argument, and I'm taking that as a model to extrapolate out into the larger context that
How do you know Jeremiah was correct?
Message. I don't know.
Well, then how did you figure
So
out?
When I say I don't know, I'm not saying 100% confidence. I'm saying Jeremiah as a person, the book Jeremiah, the context that he's written in, the date that you can put at. He's making a claim that Yahweh is the one that physically touches him at the start of the book. So these are things I'm just taking at face value.
Why are you taking it at face value?
Because isn't that like, okay, when I say face value, I don't mean I'm believing it at face value. I'm looking at it critically.
What's more likely to you, that Jeremiah actually experienced God or was explaining some nature of God, or that it actually exists, or he was just saying stuff that isn't true?
Again, it could be possible that he's just saying things, but then I can't help see certain things he says no other ancient Near Eastern person says, and the prophetic context that arise after that. So when Yahweh says the laws of nature don't change because I don't change, I can go to the lab, do physics, knowing that the equations I'm using don't change. They don't need to change.
Do you believe miracles? The suspension of, or the intervention of the uniformity?
Right. So that's why that then needs to align with what Jeremiah is saying, for example. So then later on in the ministry of Jesus, say the water turns to wine. What I find frustrating with Christians is that they think that it was distilled water Jesus was using, when specifically John says he names the geography of the location that the water was being driven up from, and sure enough, if Jesus is God, he can manipulate the materials of the air of the region that actually has enough of the alcohols and so on to then make wine.
I'm trying to find.
I'm
trying to find. You know those. Imagine in your head happy faces. Maybe Reid, you can.
Find those, yeah.
So he's not making, not just popping things into existence and hence current.
Because I actually still not clear what you believe. So, can you imagine in your head 5 is or just remember these 5 things: strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. Okay, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna just ask you questions. Reid can ask you questions.
Can I have like a 2-sentence clarification as to why I strongly agree or disagree?
I'll give you 1.
I feel like we've been down this road before. There's the answer, but you can't have the simple answer. You got to have the complex answer.
Is this the 15-question Christian question quiz thing?
No, this is coming out of my brain right now. Do you believe in an afterlife? Oh, sorry. The afterlife exists. Strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree.
Strongly agree.
Do you believe in a hell? Oh, sorry. Hell exists.
Not yet.
Okay. Heaven exists right now.
Yeah. Strongly agree.
The Bible is a fairly accurate representation of a deity.
Strongly agree.
Jesus actually rose from the dead in bodily form.
Strongly agree.
The Earth is 6,000 years old.
Oh yeah, that beats everything. I strongly agree on that. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, strongly disagree, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Bible has mistakes in it, meaning that what it purports to be true actually isn't true. The Bible has some mistakes in it, and what I mean by mistake is what it purports to be true actually isn't.
Quick clarification on that. Yes and no. So
I'll take that as a neutral.
it
That's
does. Fine. Okay. So do you want me to expand on that? Or?
No, that's fine. I think I know what you mean by neutral, or I think I know what you mean.
Because what I'm saying is it's wrong, and it's not claiming that those wrong things are the right things either. That's what I was trying to clarify. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to. The question's going to get a little tougher. And Reid and Pete, if you think of any, it is more likely that a book just says a man rose from the dead than a man actually rising from the dead. Strongly agree.
That's a possibility. Yeah, I agree.
You agree that it's more likely that a book just says a man rose from the dead than a man actually rising from the dead.
Depending on the coin. So a book, that's a possibility. Yeah.
Okay. It is more likely that the Old Testament just describes a God named Yahweh than it actually existing.
Now that's becoming more specific, so I would disagree. I would say when you pull in all the data together, God and the scriptures are in a nexus together. There's a conduit relationship between the two.
It is possible to have meaning without a God.
I believe so, yeah. Jesus
Agree? Disagree?
Agree.
Strongly agree?
Okay.
Or just agree? It's important, that distinction.
Well, strongly agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rob's life would not be much different if he stopped
gonna ask
believing
that
in
question.
Yahweh. Rob's life would not be much different if he stopped believing in Yahweh. Strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree.
I wouldn't say strongly disagree, but I would say disagree. Yeah, I think my life. So what I've done for the last 10 years, being a Christian, which by the way I was an atheist before, my life would be radically different now if I remained an atheist. Now, as far as morals go, I'd be a pretty good moral person, but I wouldn't be a good Christian person. Let's just say. I'd just be a good atheist.
Morality is separate from God?
Strongly agree,
from
agree.
an outside. No, I would say disagree.
I like this, Rob. I hope you're not. I hope you like this too, because I think we're actually getting more information here.
How are my answers, Doug? Am I not your typical Christian?
You're way off the charts as far as any typical Christian I've interacted with, even the liberal ones.
Right. Right.
You're somewhere between a pantheist, a henotheist, a polytheist.
Yeah, henotheistic, monolatris.
Yeah, you're interesting. But the question Reid asked you, or the statement that Reid said, morality is different than God. What is that? What you said? Separate from God. He asked that for a reason.
Yeah, I'd disagree on that.
I have a question. A Hindu who has deep devotion to their faith and strong conviction that Vishnu is the top god of all the gods is incorrect. You agree? Disagree? Strongly agree with that.
Wait. Is incorrect?
A Hindu strongly is very devout in believing that Vishnu is the top god.
I would disagree with him, but I wouldn't deny his religious worship of that god as an actual real entity. I would say, yeah, Vishnu most likely exists.
Prayer works.
As far as
Strongly
how
agree,
the ancient Israelites
agree,
practiced,
neutral.
I would say yes, but again, it's not magic. Prayer is not magic.
However it works.
God's a cosmic placebo.
Oh. A person can pray for my sister who's paralyzed with MS, and Yahweh could potentially heal her. Agree? Strongly agree? Agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree.
He could potentially, yeah. And I pray for that dog, by the way. I really do. There's a lot of people in my life and friends and people I've seen online that it really breaks my heart to see what goes on in the world.
Well, yeah, it breaks my heart too. In fact, my sister probably won't live another month or two because she's getting much worse. And it boggles my mind, actually, that I think part of the reason she's in the situation she is because of Christianity. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but this is my opinion. But I think this is a clear example of the dangers of Christianity.
Is it possible that you can extrapolate more on that, or is it too personal?
No, it's she had a choice about a year ago to die or have a feeding tube put in because she's so weak she can't even eat. And she chose the feeding tube, and here's why. Well, here's one of the reasons why. Because she truly believes that the God you believe in will heal her. She has running shoes hanging from her hospital ceiling, and she looks at those running shoes, and someday I'm going to be running in those shoes. Mm-hmm. But what's happened in the past year or two, because of that belief, has been extreme pain and suffering, like extreme. She's maxed out on the meds. And pain and suffering for the family who has to watch her go through it. And I truly think and believe that the main reason that this is happening is because of her belief in God, that he's going to heal her. Mm-hmm. Now, I could be in that situation someday myself, and I might do the same thing, ask for a feeding tube and be willing to go through that pain and suffering, but it would definitely not be for that reason. And I think I would just rather die with dignity. Mm-hmm. So anyhow,
what would you say to? Yeah, I mean, if I can just quickly read this out, because Christians have told me this as well. They've said, no, I'm just going to leave it up to God. They just neglect the doctor and so on. And what do you think about this? It goes, honor doctors for their services, since indeed the Lord created them. The skill of doctors will make them eminent, and they will be admired in the presence of the great. God, through the doctors, create medicines out of the earth, and a sensible person won't ignore them. Now, I'm not saying she's not sensible. I'm just saying, isn't it interesting that here's a passage that says, and in verse 6 it says, and he endowed human beings with science so that he would be glorified through his marvelous works, and with those medicines, the doctors cure and take away the pain. And on it goes with pharmacy and so on. So do you know what text this is?
No. Is it basically...
This is the book.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go. What
I was going to say, is this like changing a few words of a passage out of the Old Testament?
Nope.
Okay.
This is I'm quoting literally. It's the book of Sirach. It's a Jewish Second Temple text, just before the New Testament era, and Jews would align themselves with this text and associate a high credence towards medicine, medical research, and so on.
Yeah, I
continues on.
I applaud theists who take that position. Basically, When the doctor says, take your meds, they take their meds. But there's the danger of all this baggage when you believe in the back of your head. Because when I asked you the question, do you believe that God, Yahweh, could heal my sister? You said, yes, it's possible. When you have that possibility in the back of your head, that hope, I believe it's a false hope. And I think that false hope can actually cause this pain and suffering that it has, that baggage. And the good side of that quote, which you just read, doesn't require theism at all. The good side is take the responsible, the reasonable, the high probability solution to end that suffering and pain. You hear what I'm saying?
But notice this is a theist, this Jew. Yeah, I completely see what you're saying. But here's a Ben Sira, back in the BC period, a Jew, a theist, acknowledging that, yeah, God does his thing, he does his bit. But the fact that he's created what he's created, like in nature that we derive from woods and plants and so on, all the medicines, you would not be a sensible person to go to your doctor. I mean, to not go to your doctor.
Yeah.
You're sensible if you go to your doctor because God's the one who, in his sovereignty, gave the doctor.
Well, my experience,
and you see this teaching in Paul's as well. God has given gifts to the church to do this and that and so on.
Well, you had me until you mentioned Paul. I actually, in my experience, Jews are more reasonable than Christians, but
no, I was talking in a more New Testament Christian context. The same argumentation Paul makes because he's a Jew.
Okay, but anyhow, we should wrap it up. We've been going for like 3 hours. You're one really interesting guy, Rob. My guess is you have Christians who really don't know what to do with you. You have atheists who don't know what to do with you. Like, are you getting enough?
Okay, spend the next.
Are you getting enough love?
5-10 minutes giving me another question as a fundamentalist Christian that you were once.
Oh, you want me to pretend I'm a fundamentalist Christian asking you?
Yeah, if you want. Because it's too fun, Doug. This is too short.
There's only one God, Rob. How dare you sit in front of these atheists and probably thousands of viewers during the replay state for the record that you believe that there are many gods out there. And sure, good for you that you acknowledge that Yahweh's the top one. But there is only one God. The Bible is clear about that, Rob. How dare you say such a thing?
Is Jesus your authority?
Jesus, yes. Jesus is God.
No, but if he were to say that there are other gods, literally, and he actually quotes an Old Testament passage to defend his point, would you accept it? Because he's the authority.
The gods that Jesus is quoting are daemons. They are... basically, he quotes, he says that Satan is the god of this world. But we're talking about God, creator God, all-powerful God. There's only one of those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying as well.
Oh, are you saying that Allah is a part of Satan's demons?
Well, part of his divine council. If he's a fallen deity.
Oh, so you're saying Allah, Vishnu...
So Doug, you as a fundamentalist Christian, how would you explain John 10, where Jesus quotes Psalm 82, and Psalm 82 is a classic divine council
text? No, if you're saying all these gods are just demons from Satan, then I think we're on the same page.
Again, demons are distinct from the divine council gods. Demons are more in a Second Temple Jewish context, the disembodied spirits of what they call the Watchers or the Nephilim or the giants.
Are you saying Allah might be a part of the angelic realm then?
So you're talking more angelic, if you want to talk about.
Oh, now we're back to having a problem again.
If you're more accurate with specific, yeah.
Allah is not an angel. It's a false god. Come on, Rob.
An angel, just the word angel doesn't mean it's on top. It has a goodness or an evilness to it.
Okay, that's all the fundamentalist conservative I can be right now.
Yeah.
But anyhow, thanks for coming on.
No worries, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Take care.
Catch mate.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's wrap this up, guys. Any final thoughts?
Do I leave or do I just
No, you leave.
sit here? Okay.
You press the X and you go.
Press the X.
And then don't listen in the chat to hear what we're going to say. Like if we might be talking about you, so just leave the. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
We'll be nice.
Okay, I'll kick myself out.
Yeah, I don't want to kick you out a second time. How many guests did we have here tonight? We had Rob, Joe, DiPilato,
Jordan,
and Jeff Durbin.
I kind of like the tag team SE.
Yeah, that was
I don't
fun.
think we got very far with really anybody. But
No, but I thought it was interesting, way to go about it.
Yeah, that was
Interesting.
That was weird. You're a weird guy, Rob. I like Rob though because he doesn't have a lot of the hang-ups and guilt issues that I sense from a lot of other Christians. Well, guys.
I have a closing statement.
Yes, do it in the voice of Carl Sagan, would you?
It has to be done in the voice of Carl Sagan. Science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we are up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes rambling along.
amazing. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
I think I might keep this, Reid.
All right. I didn't say much, but whatever.
Yeah, I said I'll most likely delete this because I don't like Hangouts usually. But this was much more fun than I thought it would
how many viewers do we have?
be. We're still live, by the way.
67.
This is called the Playful Post-Show Banter.
Yeah.
Which of the guests did you think was the most crazy?
Oh, man.
Oh wait, we forgot to mention that we talked to the NASA guy, Joe. Who was that?
I mentioned Joe.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
That last one, yeah.
I think Jordan was the most crazy. He's an atheist and he goes to church.
Yeah.
That's insane. Rob's a close second, though.
I'm not convinced that Rob knows what he is. I think
Yeah.
Rob is just at the all-you-can-eat buffet of beliefs.
Thanks to everyone hanging out. We had I think on average 70 to 80 people the whole evening at one time watching. That was good. Fun. Great.
It's a Friday. What does everyone do? But thanks.
What are you saying, Reid? That coming here and watching my live stream is mean that they're losers?
Oh,
They're not losers.
no.
They're great people.